She had never liked the way strangers reacted to her height. 7 feet, 3 inches, and built like the kind of woman sculptors imagined for ancient legends. Rhea moved through the world with the double-edged visibility of awe and misunderstanding. People stared. Some whispered. Some laughed. Some called her marvel. Others called her a mistake. And because she had heard every version of those reactions from childhood into adulthood, she learned to echo them quietly to herself before anyone else could. Too big, too awkward, too much. Her mother used to tell her she was born of mountains, but mountains were admired only from afar, not embraced, rarely loved, never chosen. At least, that's what Rhea believed until she met Dorian, the botanist with a soft voice and an easy smile who always carried dirt under his fingernails because, as he said, plants don't like to be handled by clean hands. She met him at the public conservatory on a day she had come to hide from the world, and he had approached her not because of her height, but because she was crying behind a potted fig tree. "The trees aren't very good listeners," he said gently, holding out a handkerchief decorated with embroidered ivy. "But they're good companions." She almost laughed. Almost. Months after that first meeting, she still didn't know how someone like him, compact, cheerful, sun-warmed from hours spent in gardens, had found interest in someone like her. When she walked, entire hallways seemed to shrink. When she sat, chairs complained. When she spoke, people expected a voice of thunder, but instead got a shy whisper. She told Dorian this often. "I'm built wrong," she said one evening while they walked through the conservatory after hours, warm lights casting soft halos on the leaves overhead. "I'm not normal. I'm not beautiful. I take up too much space." Dorian looked up at her with an expression that felt like a balm. "Rhea, you aren't too much. You're exactly yourself. That's all anyone is supposed to be." But reassurance slid off her like water off glass. She had felt the weight of being a spectacle all her life. Once, in a moment when her insecurities wrapped around her throat and squeezed, she whispered the words she thought were unchallengeable truth. "My body's too big. I'm not breeding material." Dorian had flinched, actually flinched, not out of disgust but sorrow. "Who told you that?" "Everyone. Teachers. Doctors. People online. I mean, look at me." She gestured at her limbs, her height, her width. "I'm like a misplaced, mythical creature." Dorian reached up, gently took her hands, and said, "You are extraordinary. Not broken. Not unlovable." She tried to believe him. Tried so hard it made her chest hurt. But the echo of those old voices lived deep in her bones. And so, she carried her insecurities like a shadow, even as their relationship grew from friendship into something softer, something that terrified her, something that felt like hope. Scene 2 begins the morning she sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, holding a pregnancy test that showed 2 unmistakable lines. She stared at it for so long her vision blurred. The sun crawled slowly across the wall, but she could not seem to breathe deeply enough to pull her thoughts into order. Pregnant. Her. The woman who had been told all her life she was too large, too unusual, too everything. She expected fear, expected panic, expected the familiar sense of inadequacy to swallow her whole. Instead, what rose inside her was something else, fragile, quivering, almost frightened to exist. Wonder. She waited 3 hours before she could bring herself to walk to the conservatory. Dorian was kneeling in a patch of soil near the greenhouse entrance, coaxing new seedlings into place. When he looked up and saw her expression, he immediately stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "Rhea? What's wrong?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her throat tightened. She tried again. "Dorian, I'm pregnant." The silence that fell between them was enormous. Larger than her. Larger than everything. Then, slowly, impossibly, Dorian's eyes glowed with a joy so profound it made her step back. "Pregnant?" he repeated, as if tasting the word. "We're gonna have a baby?" She nodded, tears forming. "I don't understand how. After everything people said, my size, but she didn't get to finish the spiral of fears." Dorian stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her waist, not fully reaching, because she was enormous compared to him, but embracing her with every ounce of certainty he possessed. "Rhea," he murmured into her chest, "your body is strong. Your body is capable. And this is a miracle, yes, but it's also you. You did this. We did this." She cried then, not because she felt broken, but because for the first time she felt whole. They spent the rest of the day walking through the conservatory, speaking in soft voices as if the plants needed quiet to help them absorb the news. Dorian kept glancing at her with an expression that made her heart squeeze, like someone gazing at the most precious sunrise of his life. "I always knew you'd make a wonderful mother," he said at one point. Rhea laughed through her tears. "How?" "I never believed it. Not once." "Because," he said simply, "you care deeply. You're gentle with everything, plants, animals, strangers, even me. You think your size defines you, but your heart is bigger than your height." She covered her face with her hands. "I was so sure my body was wrong. Too big, too strange. I thought no one would ever want a life with me." "I want every life with you," he answered. "This one, the next, and the one after that, if we get so lucky." Over the next weeks, as they prepared for the first medical appointment, Rhea found herself moving differently. She stood taller, not just physically but emotionally. When she walked down the street, she no longer shrank inward. When people stared, she didn't interpret it as judgment. Sometimes people simply stared at things that were magnificent. She caught her reflection one morning and saw someone powerful, someone capable of carrying life, someone worth loving. Pregnancy brought challenges, aches sharper than anything she'd felt, fatigue that hit like a tide, new insecurities whispering in her ear. But every fear was met by Dorian's steadfast presence. He built custom furniture so she could sit comfortably. He researched prenatal care for unusually tall women. He spoke to doctors with calm determination. And each night, before bed, he placed a small hand on her stomach, even before it had grown, and whispered, "We can't wait to meet you." Rhea listened to those words, let them settle into her bones, and something within her bloomed. As months passed, she grew rounder, softer, and even taller somehow, as if motherhood stretched her in ways the world never had. People still stared, but now she sensed admiration more than mockery. Children pointed with awe, adults smiled. Some even complimented her glowing presence. For the first time in her life, she did not apologize for existing. Instead, she reveled in the gentle miracle inside her, in the way Dorian held her hand as they walked, in the quiet evenings spent planning a nursery. One night, when she lay curled, well, as curled as a 7'3" woman could, in the bed that Dorian had reinforced with steel brackets, she whispered, "I used to think my size made me unlovable." Dorian kissed her forehead. "Your size is part of you, but love finds the heart, not the bones." "I still can't believe this is real," she said, placing a hand on her belly. A flutter answered her. The first kick. She gasped. Dorian's eyes widened. "Was that?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes again. "They're saying hello." They spent nearly an hour marveling at every movement, every tiny sign of life. As her emotions surged with that same familiar wonder, she remembered the girl she once was, the one who hid behind fig trees, terrified of being seen. Now, she was creating a life, growing a family, and embracing the space she occupied in the world. She wasn't too big. She was big enough to carry love, to shelter a future, to be the kind of mother whose arms could hold the whole world. And when Dorian whispered, "You're perfect, Rhea," she finally believed him.